Hey guys, welcome to part 3 of the build video for the Coz3D Jetpack. And today what we're going to work on is putting this top plate into the body and finishing it up, and then we are going to mark everything and get everything prepped for our final priming. So let's get to it. Alright, so at this point we've got everything sanded, we've got everything in the case of what I've done is UV resined everything and resanded, and now we are moving on to attaching the top plate to the body. So this is actually a very simple procedure. The first thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that it dry fits in there correctly and make sure that there's no big seams or anything. And in this case, this particular one has a little bit of flashing here, and I had left it on here just for this purpose. Get this moved out of the way, and we're going to just clean that up a little bit so that it does sit flush down onto the body. We're going to do that on both sides. And one thing I really like are these sanding sticks. I do get them off of Amazon. They really come in handy. So now that we've got that extra plastic cleaned up there on the ends, I'm going to dry fit that again and make sure that it sits down. And what it was doing was it was sitting up just a little too high here on the corners. Not a lot, but just a hair. So it looks like that's pretty good now. So we're going to grab our super glue. First, I already have done this and prepped this, but I've gone around this edge here and just roughened it up. You could do this with a piece of sandpaper if you want. We just want to make sure that we get a good bond to this piece because we don't have any paint on it yet. It's raw plastic, and we're going on to raw plastic here on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is grab my CA glue, and I'm going to glue this front edge here. We're going to spread glue on there liberally without it dripping down or anything. So that's your main contact point in the front. And then of course we've got two lips that are right here that we're also going to spread some glue on. And then we're going to put a little bit of glue here on the back of this piece. And when we set it down in there, we're going to make sure that everything is sitting nice on the shelf, and then we're going to simply take our thumbs and push the back towards the front so that it all joins together. So let's get to it. Alright, so we're just very carefully going to drop it right down onto the shelf. Now I'm going to try to rotate this forward so you can see. So you can see right now we've got a little bit of a seam up here that's still there. I'm going to make sure that this is in the proper orientation, and then we're simply going to pinch that shut. Now the unfortunate part is you do need about 2 hands for this. I will also say that a clamp, if you have a small clamp or something like that, that actually will help work out really well. We're going to get that in there real nice, and I think someone's going to grab me a clamp real quick, or 2. All right, thanks Jake. Appreciate it. Got the shop manager over there helping today. And we're just going to hold this until we get a good cure. And again, as I mentioned, make sure that the front here doesn't lift up. And if we wind up with a little bit of a gap, it's okay. We're going to fill it and sand it down anyway. So we're going to get some kicker on here now that we're getting set. little bit in front. And we're just gonna let this sit for about 2 or 3 minutes and let that cure up real nice, and then we'll come right back to it. All right, now that we've got the top plate on there and it's good and cured, we're gonna move over to an 80 grit random orbit sander. And what I'm looking to do is just get this nice and flush all through here. We're not looking to sand away a ton of material. We're just gonna kind of camouflage it here a little bit. So let's go ahead and get that sanded. All right, now that we're done with the 80 grit, I'm gonna move over to a 220 grit, and we're just gonna get that roughed part out of there. All right, feels pretty good. We're still not perfectly smooth, but that's okay because we're gonna come back, we're gonna clean this dust off here, and we're gonna come back with some Bondo, and we're gonna get that seam completely hidden. So let's get to that next. We are going to just mix up some Bondo. I'm actually going to use some body filler today. You can also use wood filler, the red Bondo glazing if you want to do this. I'm looking for just a little bit more rigidity on this particular pack because this pack is actually for a client. So I'm gonna make sure that it's nice and prepared. So we're gonna mix the Bondo up here. And then I'm gonna take my latex glove and just smear it across the top. And we're gonna get rid of that seam. And then once we get rid of that seam, we're going to be able to go back with our sander and just clean it up so that you can't even tell it was there. So let's just come right in and bring it right across that seam. I'm going to go a little liberal with this because I don't mind sanding. If you're doing this on your own, you might want to start with a less amount. Fortunately, I've been working with this stuff long enough that I'm pretty proficient with it. So like I say, we're just wanting to hide that seam that runs up the edge here. While I've got my Bondo out here, I'm going to also put a little bit on this corner where the top plate meets. We're going to push some into that crack, and the same on this side, just so we can camouflage that. Now you've got two seams that are back here that we're not going to worry about right now, because I'm actually going to use the red Bondo glazing for that. It's a little bit easier of a process with the Bondo glazing. And our Bondo is already starting to harden, so this is great. We're moving right along. Got it pretty well smoothed out. And while I've got some Bondo here extra, I'm going to drop some into this little area right here. I know you can't probably see this on camera. We're going to feather that up into there. Get that seam taken care of while we're in here. And the same over here on this seam. Now I'll probably do this off camera, but because I have it so chunked up here, I will go back with my X-Acto knife and I'll trim this off when it gets just a little bit hard, but not fully cured. and trim off the excess. Doing a video like this is a little more difficult because I'm at an odd angle to be able to see this stuff, so I'm getting a little more reckless with my Bondo, but we'll be fine with that. All right, so we're just gonna let that cure now, and we'll be right back, and we're gonna finish it by sanding it off. Okay, while we're waiting for our Bondo to go ahead and finish fully curing, I've left my pile over here, and it's getting firm, and I've done some trimming, but we're not ready to sand yet. So while we're waiting on that, I'm gonna move on to the next step, and we're gonna get these panels marked out to where they need to go on the body. And the reason I do this is because there's no sense in putting a ton of extra work in sanding all of this area. Even though we've done our initial sanding, we haven't done our final sanding. So I'm just gonna mark out where these panels go exactly, and then we're gonna go back and we're gonna put some masking tape in these areas so that we know where they go, so that we don't have to kill ourselves on finishing areas that you're never gonna see. So we'll start with that one. Another part on these panels is I've gone on ahead and masked off the backs so that when we have the masking tape here, we're gonna have raw plastic and plastic here so that we can get a nice secure bond. So again, we've discussed this in the first video, but these panels slide all the way to the top of the top plate. They sit right there, the first flat ones. We're gonna mark those out. Now we're immediately gonna follow it up with putting the next one on top of this one. We're gonna mark this one as well. And as best we can hold it, we're gonna mark along the body. So now that I've got that marked, I'll try to keep this simple here. First thing is we're gonna glue to here. So I'm gonna pull my masking tape out. I'm using this yellow masking tape that's super easy to see through, and I'm just gonna set it close to the line. I don't want it on the line, because the last thing we wanna do is have to go back and do paint touch-ups after we're done here. And as you can see, the line's still on the outside of the tape, and I'm just gonna trim along the inside of the line. And I'll show you what I mean in just a moment here. So again, this just gets us plastic to plastic later when we get ready to glue our parts on, and we don't have to work really hard to finish underneath this masking tape because you're never going to see it. So I'm going to go around and do each one of these pieces. So we've got that one masked, and we're going to move over to this one. I'm not going to put any masking tape on the bottom because I'll have that set flat on my surface when I paint, so there won't be any paint that gets on there. And now we're going to move over to the body area, and I'm going to go ahead and get this masked up, and then we'll come. Okay, so now we've got all of our tape on our body, and we are prepped for our first coat of primer. So as you can see, we've got the orange tape that's up here is for the piano keys, and of course those extend over onto these pieces as well, which we have taped off, so that we don't have any problems with our piano keys later on popping off because they're sticking to paint and not actually sticking to plastic. And now that's it. We're about ready to move over to the paint booth and give this a shot of primer, but we're going to do that next week. Hey, thanks for watching today's video. Make sure you guys smash that like button, make sure you subscribe, and keep an eye out on what else we're doing. We got some other projects coming up the pipeline, so we'll see you next time.